Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World Chess Championship. And welcome to a World Chess Championship involving Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. That's not clickbait. You haven't clicked on a video where I am lying to you, but I have withheld a few small details which I will now disclose. Did you know that today, the chess world began the Fischer Random World Chess Championship? That's a thing. Fischer Random is very quickly becoming the fourth type of chess that is recognized. We have classical, long games, rapid games that are like 25-minute, blitz games, which are 5 or 3, and Fischer Random. Now, Fischer Random is the type of chess where the first row is the pawns. Technically, they're shuffled. Technically, they're not. They're all pawns. The back row of pieces is shuffled, okay? With various other rules, like bishops have to be on opposite color, kings have to be in between rooks. Wesley So is the defending world champion of Fischer Random Chess from 2019. And going into this edition, there was a long qualification process, okay? So, which 2022. Now, there are 8 players. They are separated into 2 groups, as you can see there, right? Those are the players. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description if you want to dig deeper. As always, have you ever found that, like, finding standings in live games for chess tournaments is like a giant pain? It's very tough to figure this out. There's a link to the chess.com results. You have Wesley So, Magnus Carlsen, Hjörvar Gretarsson from Iceland, the wild card. You have Jan Nepomniachtchi, who was invited by FIDE. You have Vladimir Fedoseev and Matthias Bluebaum, who qualified. Hikaru qualified. And Nodirbek qualified. So 2 of the players in Group A, I will show you their game right now. As you can see, and Magnus and Hikaru are they're playing. So they're playing, and they played today, which is why they're on the thumbnail. And we're going to get to that a little bit later. So the players play a little mini match against each other, 2 games. This was the first game between Nodirbek, Abdusatorov, and Jan Nepomniachtchi. You'll notice that all the pieces are shuffled on the back rank, and strategy is very fascinating. You know, to castle this way, you need to clear this space. In order to castle that way, you gotta make sure the king and the rook can both go here. So you need to get rid of these 3 pieces. And openings sometimes look normal, but other times look like this. So Jan plays in a very fascinating way. He immediately puts 2 light squared pawns in the center, preventing white from playing like this. So white plays a queen's gambit style game where the queen guarding the pawn is not a bishop, it's a queen, because the bishop and the queen got swapped. For the rest of the position, it's actually relatively normal. The knight and the rook got swapped, but only those 2 pieces got swapped. And Jan plays like a stonewall. So you'll notice that Jan is sort of playing this in a stonewall Dutch style. A regular game of chess with this formation is just a stonewall Dutch. That knight generally makes it to that square. You try to clamp on e4, and your light squared bishop, or the color of the bishop that is obviously the same colors as all the pawns in the center, is kind of a problem piece, right? So Nodirbek plays here, develops his bishops, and it's very clear that he's very obviously preparing long castle, but maybe he's not. Jan plays knight h4, sort of indicating that he would like to create some sort of attack. Nodirbek plays f3. The idea of f3 is looking to blow open the center with e4. And Jan does indeed launch g5. So g5 is sort of a fascinating idea because you're trying to play like f4 or something. But g5 would only make a lot of sense, like let's just say this, if white castled this way. Because then actually I would say, okay, there's some sort of attack here. And even then, the computer is not convinced. But when you've made it very clear to your opponent you'd like him to, castle that way, your opponent's going to go long. I mean, we just talked about this, right? Like you clear out the space. Now the king's totally safe. Jan now plays knight b6 and is like, okay, well, I got to catch up a little bit on my development, but chess principles still apply. When your opponent's king is standing in the center of the board, what do you want to do? You want to tear down the center. Takes e4. E4 now guarantees that the center opens up at least a little bit in one of the 2 directions. Jan tries to shut it down like this, but look at Nodirbek. E takes d5, sacrificing his knight completely. Why? Because he gets at least 2 pawns back for it, but it's even better than that. The king is now getting chased out of the center. So he goes like this. He gets 2 pawns. This is still under attack. This is still under attack. The queen can join the attack at some moment. Jan plays knight back to f5. We have takes, takes. And now, again, the black king has a brief moment to pause and be stable. Nodirbek says, no, not on my watch. d5, continuing to bash open the center of the board. Brings his queen, activates it, hits the knight, and lines up an attack on the king. Continues to rip away the defenses of the black king. If knight e4, there would be double check. There would be d takes c6 with 2 checks at the same time, luring the king even further forward. So instead of that, we have knight takes d5, takes, takes, and right when it looks like the attack has been settled, the queen blitzes to the other side of the board, and that hits the king, that hits the rook, that hits the bishop. Black can cover up for one move, but we have bishop f5, and the bishop goes from the other side. Look at this beautiful crisscross, applesauce, absolute demolition. You might say, why didn't he play queen takes g8? He could have, but the better move is bishop a5, and black is defenseless. If black had gone king c7, it would have been the exact same thing. Bishop to a5, and the knight cannot guard because it has to guard this. Look at this position. The bishops, the queen, and the rook, just everything, just avalanche on all three sides of the board. Nodirbek making it look easy. Oh my goodness. Absolutely spectacular win against one of the best players in the world, Nepomniachtchi. Fisher Random does not care what your current stature is, all right? It humbles everybody. Now, two other players in Group A, Wesley So and Gretarsson, okay? So those are the players in Group A. Gretarsson, Wesley So, Nodirbek, Nepomniachtchi, which means the other group is Bluebaum, Fedoseev, Carlsen, Nakamura. If you don't remember that, don't worry, all right? You have the link in the description. So Wesley, no pun intended, versus Gretarsson Hjorvar. This one is a little bit different. So instead of playing knight g3, same position, by the way, they get each white and black a chance to play. Wesley plays for the center. So we actually have a Caro-Kann. It's obviously not a Caro-Kann, but we have a Caro-Kann structure. And normally in the Caro-Kann, you know, the knight comes to f6. In this position, Gretarsson does it a slightly different way, playing like this. But then he's wasting time. You see what I mean? He's already losing. It's kind of insane. So the move bishop b6 was already such a misstep, just a natural move developing a piece. In fact, this entire setup was actually kind of inaccurate by black already. It's already +1. The computer wants to sacrifice a pawn to catch up with development, to play like queen b4 check and fast development. Gretarsson plays a couple of moves, but due to the overwhelming lack of support in the center, Wesley just creates a threat on the king with knight to d6, forces Gretarsson to waste time. And let me tell you something right now. In Fisher Random, you do not want to waste time. Because you notice that black has made 2 moves with his knight and 2 moves with his bishop, right? It's move 8. Black has made 7 moves, but black is already losing. And if you try to punch with your feet side by side, and you try to create an attack with your feet side by side, there's not going to be much of an attack. Wesley takes on f6 and just grabs the pawn, and now he still has this threat with knight takes f6. Gretarsson moves the king out of the way. That can't be good. That's not castling. Now you can't castle. And Wesley just continues to bulldoze. He's just very cleanly up a pawn. And, well, the king is going to be safe, probably, right? I mean, king is relatively safe on b6. King is relatively safe on b6. Said no one ever, okay? Famous last words. King is fairly safe on b6 because in this position, Wesley says, yeah, king is fairly safe, huh? King is fairly safe. Rook takes a6! If ba, queen c7 is mate in 1, the solo act of the queen. And if king a6, well, you can win in a variety of ways, but queen c7, rook a1, queen d3, and so on. Rook takes a6, 19 moves, game, set, match. Wesley, the defending Fisher Random World Champion, winning a beautiful game. Now, this one I also have for you. This is from Group B, same exact setup. This is Carlsen, Fedoseev. This one, Fedoseev getting rowdy early. So we saw a couple of games of d5. Fedoseev kind of playing his own version of a queen's gambit, looking to get white off center and then try to win the pawn back. Magnus takes space. As we've already seen, restricting enemy play is very important. Now, queen d6. Early queen stuff is normal sometimes in Fisher Random, but you got to be really careful because if your queen gets bulldozed early and utilized as a like for example, like if white gets something like this, white is just, it's game over. Like it's probably just lost, okay? Computer says it's +2. It's probably worse than that as a human. So you want to make sure you're very careful. And like, look at this. I mean, Fedoseev's getting real goofy out here. Like, you know, the bishop out, the queen out. But he's all right. He's actually got a relatively good grasp of the position because he's trying to destabilize the white center, right? He's trying to take the pawn on d5. And he does that. What does Magnus do? Jumps out of the pin. So the idea is Magnus wants to take this back and open as much positional stuff as possible. He wants to be down 2 pawns but winning. Okay? Because he'll have f5 and bishop e3 and knight g3 and knight e4. He's going to be down 2 pawns, but black is stuck in the center and white is getting very quick development. Fedoseev plays d4 and goes back with his queen. Carlsen is down a pawn, but he's getting real hostile here. Knight is coming to d6, knight g3, knight f5. Last couple of games, we saw what happens when black doesn't castle. Well, in this game, he is castling, and let me tell you right now, Magnus is still shoving that horse directly in his mouth. Knight going to d6, all right? And now the next phase of the game, bishop e2, black plays f6. That destabilizes the light squares all over the board. Magnus not going to stop. Queen g3 defends the center, but more than that, it does a whole lot more than defend the center. If you take on e5 in this position, I'm going f5. All right, you go back to e7, I'm going f6. I'm not stopping. I'm going bishop h6. You castled in this game, and that's great, but the attack is going to rage on, and I mean, Fedoseev does his best, but he just can't do anything. Like, he is really doing as best as he can. Look at Magnus Carlsen. Queen takes on g6. Oh my goodness, if you take this as mate, the thing about Fischer Random is it leads to these captivating, scintillating attacking games that normally we never get to see. Rook f6, queen e8 check, simplifies down into an endgame, gets a lot of material, and listen, Magnus Carlsen knows how to win an endgame. He certainly also knows how to win an endgame when he's up a bishop. Yes, black has 2 pawns, but they are not felt. White is going here, white is going here. It's going to be game over very soon. And Magnus took care of business against Fedoseev, although in the second game, he was a little bit under some pressure for sure. But Magnus, I mean, these games are just incredible. And you know, some of these Fischer Random positions benefit black, because it's like, sometimes it's better for white to go first, but sometimes it's actually real. Like, in some of the Fischer Random setups, a side just has a clear advantage. And it really seems like in everything that we've seen thus far, white has won every game, right? Now, you could say, well, white was the better Fischer Random player. Maybe. But some of these games early on, black is just getting atrocious positions, just unable to deal with white's pressure, whether black occupies the center or not. Well, I mean, Hikaru is our last hope, right? Well, let's see if Hikaru versus Bluebaum is able to get a win with black. I mean, he's the higher rated player, right? So far, we've seen kind of the favorite. Look at Hikaru. Okay, well, first of all, Bluebaum doesn't play d4. Everyone we've seen thus far has played d4, and Hikaru plays a wing Scandinavian. So he brings his queen out and then retreats and then castles. So no center play at all, meaning that black could play the move like c4 if he wants. White can play c4, knight c3, bishop e3. But you'll notice black is actually better in some of these positions because black gets to wait for white to make a move and then start striking back at the center. And by the time white sort of plays a move like d5, black is getting in and maybe getting in with the other knight, getting in with the bishop, getting in with whatever. But some of these setups in Fischer Random, it's actually beneficial for the other side to get to make a move. In this game, Hikaru waited a while and was the one to take the center after white refused to do so, which is very fascinating, right? So we have d5, we have e5, and, you know, life is good, right? So queen b5, knight e7 back, and Hikaru plays a beautiful structure, clarifies the situation in the center, and now we actually have a position that looks like a normal game. And a few moves later, you're going to notice we're going to have a trade. Hikaru puts his knight in the center, and queen goes to h4, long castle. So now this, I don't know what opening this resembles, but why is black better? I mean, white has a couple of pieces pointed this way, but why is black better? Black is better for a couple of things. These 5 pieces have a much higher quality than their 5 counterparts. Like the black rook is much more active. Black is creating tangible pressure. Knight going to c4. Also, the computer probably thinks that in the long run, black's attack is meaningful, white's attack is non-existent. Like the computer does not see a way that the attack is going to work. And you'll notice that Hikaru begins the preparations of the attack, right? Rook e1, Hikaru stabilizes the 7th rank and potentially prepares to double his rook. Rook d8, and queen back to h6, and now we have a dance, all right? And finally, when Bluebaum is like going this way and looking like he's gonna come, yeah, Hikaru's like, bro, give me this pawn. Are you nuts? That's just a free pawn. And Bluebaum's like, I don't think it's a free pawn, boss. You got to take this too, and then I'm gonna hit you with some bishop trap, maybe get to your bishop. And Hikaru decides to do this and trade knights and go back with the queen. But here comes Bluebaum. Wait a minute, maybe Matthias was onto something. And maybe just in general, white is better in this position. Like, right? I mean, everything we've seen thus far. So rook e8, and now Hikaru's got to win this position where he's a pawn up, but he is under tremendous pressure. For example, if rook takes d5 in this position, white wins via bishop b3. If c takes d5 in this position, White has bishop a4. It's actually even worse. You're going to lose everything. You're going to lose the bishop, then probably lose your queen. So Hikaru, all of a sudden, is fighting against a very powerful initiative, right? But he's so clutch. Immediately seizes back control of the game. Queen d6, and it's still a battle, all right? Queen h4, creating various threats against Hikaru's king. Hikaru just plays h5, cold-blooded, pushes a pawn directly in front of his king. Like what? What are you going to do to me? Huh? Bishop b3, takes on c3. Look at this. Gives up the rook, because at the end of the sequence, there is now danger on the white king, and Hikaru grabs the pawn with check, and very calmly grabs another pawn, and this is the fate of the position now. Hikaru has a bishop and 3 pawns for the rook. So he's up a point, but it's worse than that, because this king is very weak, and all endgames win for black. Any queen trade is going to be winning for black, so Hikaru begins pushing the pawn. Matthias grabs himself a pawn, but Hikaru is fully invested in this, which apparently was inaccurate. Computer was giving some approach here by black to play it in a slightly different way, but Hikaru is a human being. Like, for example, here the computer wants just the immediate queen trade. Like, don't even wait around, get the immediate queen trade. Hikaru keeps the queen on and just invests fully in his c-pawn. The problem is that now apparently it's a draw, as you can see. 0-0-0. Tough position. That's the way it works, right? Time pressure. Check. Hikaru, look at this, rook h4. Now rook d4 and rook d8, queen h8. What Bluebaum had to play here was king h2. He needed to ensure his rook can go over here, because after c2 in this position, there is rook a1. And if you play c1 queen, getting 2 queens, it's actually hilarious because you lose. Bishop e8 is great. I play queen f8. I can also take. Both of those moves lead to mate in 2 and 3, and the game is over. So Bluebaum had to play king h2 and rook a1. Instead of that, he tries to get the queen in. He tries to get the rook in like this. Now Hikaru misses the move c2 here, apparently winning the game. Now somehow white is winning. King g8, Hikaru runs. Rook d4 attacks the queen, but c2 defends the queen with the threat of making a new one. Matthias, instead of rook d4, had to take the pawn. Yes, it was just hanging. Queen c3 just in one move. Now, let's say you don't see queen c3. Apparently, you can move your rook to f4 and try to just focus on the bishop by playing queen b8 and something queen c7. But Matthias plays rook d4 and misses the move c2. And it goes from bad to worse because now he has only rook a4, rook a8. That's the only thing, but he goes here. And the king escapes. But the king should have gone to h7. And king h7 was winning. But now king h7, rook f4. The queen comes back to defend the bishop. Plot twists galore in this game, but it's the final blunder that kills you, and that blunder arrives on move, I believe, 62, as Matthias realizes he's in trouble, takes the bishop, but there's nothing. c1 queen, the king is safe on h6 from all checks. That's covered, and Hikaru wins by the smallest of margins. This position just sucked for black, guys. I mean, like, white almost won, like, every game from this position. It was incredible. And it took Hikaru a monumental back and forth effort against the German Grandmaster, but he gets the job done and he gets a win in his mini match. And well, that set up an evening affair in a brand new position. All right, well, notice this one's completely different. Here, the king is directly in the center with the rooks. The queen has been replaced on the side of the board instead of the rook. And actually, oh, I apologize. I was actually going to show you, I only inputted one game. Give me a second. Apologies, I'm going to add a game here in the middle of the recap. New game, boop, 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 boop. Terrific. All right. Let's give the players names. Well, no, they have their names. Sorry. But if you're 19 minutes into this, I think we're gonna last for about 30 minutes. So this game was hilarious because when Hikaru had white against Magnus, Hikaru played this and Magnus played this. Do you understand why this is ridiculous? Because queen h8 is a free bishop. It's just straight up a free bishop. But apparently the queen gets trapped. Knight f6, and the queen looks safe because it wants to go here, but black in this position, to prevent that, would play the move d6. And rook g6 is now threatening to trap the queen. And you would you would have to sacrifice the queen for a rook, pawn, and a bishop. And it's not clear who this is better for, by the way, but there's no reason to lose your queen. So Magnus lost the bishop, lost on move 1. Hikaru played a fianchetto, and we got a relatively normal game. He played f4, attacking with his flank pawn. And yeah, now this, of course, would simply lose a bishop, so he did not do that. We have knight c3 and e4. Oh, interesting. Pawn sacrifice from Hikaru. So Magnus takes and is now just pawn up. Magnus has a full extra pawn, but what does Magnus not have? He doesn't have a lot of development, so he needs some pawn play. So what does he do here? Look at this. Sorry, he needs some piece play. Well, look at what Magnus does here. G3. This is a fascinating move. Basically, Magnus was like, all right, I don't want this, all right? I don't want Hikaru to kick me out. So I'm going to shove my pawn to G3 myself so that Hikaru can't take me here, and he's going to have to double his own pawn structure. Now, what did Hikaru do? Hikaru was like, you idiot, I'm going to sack my G-pawn back to you so I can play G3 and activate. I mean, this is just hilarious. It's like two petty brothers just like arguing and, you know, no, you have it. No, and now long castle. Look at that. Now, you could actually castle both ways. And by the way, that's a free knight. It's not really a free knight because rook e1 would line up an attack on this, and after something like, let's say, queen a6, white would play rook e7, king e7, and there's a checkmate here with rook e1, and if king d6, this is literally mate because of the bishop. Fischer random is so absurd. So there would have been a direct line of attack on that pawn on e7, which is why you always have to be very careful. Now, Hikaru being down material doesn't want to trade, so he doesn't trade queens, and instead is now looking to infiltrate on a6. Now, Magnus plays the move a5 here. Hikaru plays bishop c6 and picks up the pawn on e7, and now a little bit of stability is going to get restored as both sides have material equality. Very tense, but the pawn structure on the queen side sort of cancel each other out. Both kings are absurdly safe. Magnus has a little bit of central pressure, but we get very quickly into an endgame, and everything gets traded, as players do. And this is a very easy draw for these guys. All the pawns are on the same side of the board. And yeah, it was very, very tense in the opening. So obviously the real highlight of this game was this complete nonsense. b3, g5, literally just losing a bishop in one move. But yeah, fascinating opening from Magnus. Not too much, but that's why we have the second game, right? Magnus plays b4. Hikaru could play g5, right? Right? He could go for this, but he decides not to play into this, instead opting for d5, Magnus playing the orangutan. We have g3, okay? So now we kind of have an orangutan English, and look at Hikaru. Hikaru blunts the light-squared bishop, but he's doing it at the cost of his queen, right? His queen is now shut out. So either the queen is going to come out on the a file, on a7, or the queen's going to have to come back into the game this way, okay? Bishop g2, Magnus preparing a castle. Infiltration on the queen. Look at this. a4, b4. Playing directly against the passive queen side. We have g6, also looking to fianchetto. But from an early game, it was definitely Hikaru whose position was a little bit sus. All right? Little bit sus. Just like the knight on a6 kind of standing like, you don't know. Is this knight good or bad? Is it going to run right into b5? Is the queen coming? We don't exactly know. But Hikaru playing it very well. Knight e4. Energetic play. Hits the queen with the bishop in the corner. And then comes back to d6. A nice, important move. Castle, castle. Both sides have gone short. And b5. All right, because we knew Magnus wanted to do some stuff on the queen side. He takes, and now the queen has come to b7. Looks like Hikaru has found a home for his queen, and it's pretty well timed because it's going to be trading off against white's queen over there. c3. Bishop d7. All right. Queen comes back to c2. And we have rook c8. All right, looking for c5. d4 from Magnus. The bishop is bad, but c5 has been stopped. The bishop is going to come around this way and create some sort of attack. All right. Knight d2. But now, all right. Bishop come back. Relax. Hits the queen. Queen goes out to b3. And now Hikaru plays this move a5. Sacrificing his pawn to win it back like this. Magnus says, sacrifice what pawn to win who back? Like what? Rook a1. Rook f to b8. And Hikaru's like, all right, well, let's remove the knight from the center. I got good pressure. Magnus is like, pressure on who, bro? Let's trade some pieces. By the way, here, Magnus had this move, c4. Very energetic move. A very good move, too. If bishop takes f3, you have cb5, and the bulldozer arrives. And if you take on c4, you're really destabilizing your position. It's actually very scary. Magnus, instead of that, plays knight d2 looking for the trade. Hikaru gets aggressive here with c5, a perfectly timed move, not allowing white any energy whatsoever. Now rook cb1 is the best move, but Magnus plays rook c2 instead, and Hikaru shuts the door on the queen side. So he's fighting back, and Magnus is slowly untangling that queen side, but the battle is for this pawn. Hikaru says, you know what? I got nothing else. I'm gonna lose unless I play faster right now. Magnus is about to play a6, bishop c5, and march me down on this side of the board. Hikaru plays e5. Kind of a last-ditch effort trying to mix things up. Pawn takes e5. He gets his bishop in, but Magnus is like, well, I mean, I can just take, right? I'm gonna take. I'm gonna play here. I'm gonna bring my rook over. I can also play rook d1 and attack that weak pawn, but let's go take. Now, in this position, right, white can play f3, bishop c5, centralize the bishop, and begin pushing the pawn in some order. f3 is important because it stops any queen e4 business, but queen e4 is really not a problem because this queen protects the rook. So Magnus plays bishop c5. There's really no difference. Hikaru plays rook b3, and now Magnus, again, has an option between playing a6 or maybe bishop d4 right now or something, or f3 right now. There's really no difference, right? So he plays here. There was a difference. He hangs his rook in one move. What? The move rook b3 cut the coordination. Magnus needed to play f3 now, or he needed to play rook d2 or rook a2 or something. He literally hangs a fork. He just hung a fork. Oh my goodness, credit to Hikaru, who had an extremely unpleasant position, but by sacrificing his dark squared bishop for white's knight, you could say trading, I'm gonna say sacrificing, because that poor bishop did not have any role in this game. He activated his queen, and that's all he needed. Just a small, I mean, this is crazy blunder. I mean, Fischer Random makes us do crazy things, and Hikaru just goes directly for this endgame where he's just easily winning. You could be Magnus Carlsen, it makes absolutely no difference. Rook n5 versus bishop n5 is winning for the guy that has the rook. That's just how it works. And Hikaru doesn't let Magnus move at all. If king e5, he's just gonna lose this. And that's it. If white can't make any progress, white can go back and forth. Hikaru will walk his king very comfortably to the center, to e2, win this, take this, and sack the rook, and the game is over. So, after the first day of action at the Fischer Random World Championships, Nodirbek Abdusatorov beats Wesley So and Jan Nepomniachtchi and has 3.5 points. The way it works is drawing in your match gets you 1 point, okay? I believe. Wait, then how do you have 3.5? Hold on. Wait, let me confirm that for you. Yes, he has 3.5 out of 4. So he's won 3 games and he's drawn 1. Oh God, wait. But winning a match gets you 2 points. Oh, this is so weird. Okay, hold on. Let me... Why is it so difficult to understand this? Is it just 1 point per game? Is it not 2? Wait. What? In the group stage, players play a 2-game match, 2 points for the winner, and 1 point each for a draw. Guys, I don't know. Please somebody tell me in the comments. Why did they make this so difficult? Also, why is it rapid and not like 60-minute or something? Guys, I'm confused. I don't know why they make it so confusing. I don't even know why like nobody knows there's a world championship going on. Welcome to the world championship. Magnus beats Hikaru in a match. Sorry, Hikaru beats Magnus for like a third or fourth time, by the way. Beat him in Titled Arena, has beaten him in Titled Tuesday, beats him here. Crazy stuff. But the top 2 finishers of each group move on to a semi-final and then a final. So it was a messy first day, but we're gonna get through it. Welcome to the next World Chess Championship featuring Magnus, Hikaru, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Nodirbek, Wesley So, Bluebaum, Fedoseev, Gretarsson. I hope you enjoy. I'll see you for the next 5 days. Get out of here.